Okay, so imagine this. You're living your best life. The weather's getting warmer, the ice is melting, things are looking up. And then bam! In less than a human lifetime, everything freezes. Your crops die, animals vanish, the temperature drops by 15 degrees Celsius. And this freeze? It lasts for 1,000 years. This actually happened 12,800 years ago. And here's the crazy part. When the ice finally melted, the world looked completely different. The woolly mammoths? Gone. Saber-toothed cats? Extinct. Giant sloths the size of elephants? Wiped out. And it gets darker. An entire human civilization, the Clovis people, the most advanced culture in America at the time, they just disappeared. What could cause something this catastrophic? For decades, scientists thought they had it figured out. But then a group of researchers discovered something that changed everything. Evidence of a disaster so violent, so apocalyptic, that it makes every disaster movie look tame. Today, we're investigating the 12,800-year-old cold case of the Younger Dryas. And I'm warning you, one of these theories involves a comet impact that literally set an entire continent on fire. So stick around, because this gets insane. But first, let me paint you a picture of what the world looked like before everything went wrong. It's 13,000 years ago. The last ice age is ending. Massive ice sheets that covered half of North America are finally melting. Sea levels are rising. The climate is getting warmer and more stable. Life is, honestly, pretty good. In North America, you've got these incredible animals everywhere. We're talking woolly mammoths with tusks 16 feet long, ground sloths that weigh 4 tons, dire wolves hunting in packs, ancient camels, giant beavers the size of bears, and these armadillo-like creatures called glyptodonts with shells you could literally use as a shelter. And then there's humans, the Clovis people. These weren't primitive cave dwellers. They were sophisticated hunters with technology that wouldn't be matched for thousands of years. Their spear points, absolutely beautiful, perfectly crafted. Archaeological evidence shows they had trade networks spanning thousands of miles. Everything is trending upward. Evolution is doing its thing. And then, everything stops. Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth's climate crashes. And I don't mean it gets a little colder. I mean temperatures in North America drop by 15 degrees Celsius in some regions. In just a few decades. That's like going from New York to Alaska overnight. This event has a name, the Younger Dryas. Scientists named it after a little Arctic flower called Dryas that suddenly started showing up in places where it had no business being, because those places had turned into frozen wastelands. For 1,000 years, the planet is locked in this deep freeze. Glaciers that had been retreating, they start advancing again. The warm, stable climate that was allowing human civilizations to flourish? Gone. And when it's finally over, when the ice retreats again around 11,800 years ago, the damage is done. Over 35 generations of large mammals, extinct, the Clovis culture, vanished without a trace. The archaeological record literally shows a black layer in the soil, and above that layer, everything is different. So what caused this? That's where things get controversial. For decades, the mainstream scientific explanation was something called the meltwater pulse hypothesis. And honestly, it's pretty elegant. Here's how it works. During the Ice Age, there was this massive ice sheet covering Canada called the Laurentide Ice Sheet. We're talking millions of cubic miles of ice, and as it melted, all that water had to go somewhere. Most of it was draining south through the Mississippi River into the Gulf of Mexico. But here's where it gets interesting. There was this giant ice dam holding back an enormous lake called Lake Agassiz. This wasn't just any lake. At its peak, it contained more water than all the current Great Lakes combined. The theory says that around 12,800 years ago, this ice dam catastrophically failed. Billions of gallons of fresh water suddenly rushed into the North Atlantic Ocean. And this wasn't just any water. It was cold, fresh, glacial meltwater. Now, why does this matter? Because of something called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. Basically, the ocean's conveyor belt. This current brings warm water from the tropics up to the North Atlantic, keeping Europe and North America relatively warm. But this current depends on differences in water density. Salt water is denser than fresh water. So when you suddenly dump a massive amount of fresh water into the North Atlantic, you essentially shut down the conveyor belt. No warm current, no warm climate. Europe and North America plunge into a deep freeze. The hypothesis explains the Younger Dryas perfectly. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. Because in 2007, a team of scientists published evidence of something that would turn this entire theory upside down. What if I told you that 12,800 years ago, a comet exploded over North America? This is the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis, and when it was first proposed, the scientific community thought it was ridiculous. But the evidence? It's actually terrifying. Here's what these researchers found. In a layer of sediment dating to exactly 12,800 years ago, the start of the Younger Dryas, they discovered something called a black mat. This dark layer appears at dozens of sites across North America, Europe, and even parts of Asia. And it's not just any dark soil. When they analyzed it, they found nanodiamonds. These are microscopic diamonds that only form under extreme pressure and temperature, like from an impact. Platinum at concentrations 100 times higher than normal. Platinum is rare on Earth's surface, but common in asteroids and comets. Spherules, tiny glass-like beads that form when rock is superheated and melted, then rapidly cooled. Charcoal, lots of charcoal, evidence of massive continental-scale wildfires. But here's where it gets really crazy. They're not talking about a single asteroid impact like the one that killed the dinosaurs. They're talking about a fragmented comet, something that broke apart in the atmosphere and detonated over the ice sheet. Think Tunguska on steroids. The Tunguska event in 1908 flattened 800 square miles of Siberian forest from a relatively small airburst. Now imagine something hundreds of times more powerful exploding over an ice sheet. The theory goes like this. The impact, or multiple impacts, instantly vaporize huge sections of the ice sheet. The shockwave triggers massive wildfires across the continent. Animals caught in the firestorm, dead. Humans, either killed immediately or faced with a landscape of ash and destruction. The vaporized ice releases enormous amounts of water vapor and gases into the atmosphere, triggering climate chaos. The debris in the atmosphere blocks sunlight, nuclear winter on a global scale. Temperatures plummet. The Younger Dryas begins. Evidence supporting this? They found a massive crater-like structure called Saginaw Bay under Lake Huron. Impact proxies at the right sediment layer. Extinct megafauna with bones showing signs of sudden, violent death. And that black mat showing up at archaeological sites across 2 continents at the exact same time. Now you'd think this would be a closed case, right? But here's where it gets messy. Because science, capital S, doesn't like new theories that overturn decades of established thinking. Critics of the impact hypothesis have been brutal. They've argued that the nanodiamonds could form from other processes. The platinum spike isn't consistent across all sites. There's no clear impact crater, though a comet airburst wouldn't necessarily leave one. The timing might not be as precise as claimed. But here's the thing. The impact hypothesis supporters have been finding more evidence, not less. New studies have confirmed the platinum anomaly. They've found melt glass that shows signs of extreme temperatures. Impact proxies keep showing up at more and more sites. And the meltwater hypothesis? It has its own problems. Recent research suggests Lake Agassiz might not have drained into the North Atlantic at exactly the right time. Some ice cores don't show the massive freshwater input the theory requires. So where does that leave us? Here's the truth. We might never know with 100% certainty what caused the Younger Dryas. But both theories point to the same terrifying conclusion. Whether it was a catastrophic flood or a comet impact, our planet can change dramatically in a human lifetime. Thriving civilizations can vanish. Entire species can go extinct. The climate we depend on, it's more fragile than we think. The Clovis people were probably the most advanced culture of their time. They had technology, trade networks, and knowledge passed down through generations. And whatever happened 12,800 years ago was so catastrophic that they simply ceased to exist. The really scary part? Both scenarios could happen again. Impact events are rare, but inevitable. And our climate system, with its ocean currents and feedback loops, is still not fully understood. So the next time someone tells you the world has always been changing, remember the Younger Dryas. Remember that 12,800 years ago, in less than a human lifetime, the world went from warming paradise to frozen hellscape. And remember those mammoths, those saber-toothed cats, and those Clovis hunters. They thought their world was eternal too. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, and maybe keep an eye on the sky.